Hi, everyone. Welcome to First and North. My name is Lou Canellis from Fox 32 in Chicago. Joining me this week on First and North, let's bring in the crew. The voice of the Detroit Lions, Dan Miller, is at Fox in Detroit. From Fox Milwaukee, Tim Van Boren. And from Fox Minneapolis, Pierre Nugent. All right, guys. Dan, I'm going to start with you, man. Lions dominated the Ravens last night, both sides of the football. And before I get to you, here's the scene in the locker room following the game.
We did exactly what we said we needed to do, play complimentary freaking football, man. When we needed it most, every phase picked up the slack, man. That's how you win games against teams like that, man. And now you know what the barometer is like on the AFC.
Man, I'll tell you what, Lions made a bold statement against a Super Bowl contender. This was a battle of heavyweights. Dan, you told me last week that the Lions did not forget the 38-6 butt whipping they received last year from Baltimore, and they played like it.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will ever forget that one, Lou. That was one of those games that was really an anomaly in the Dan Campbell era where they were just out of it before it started. It was 28-0 before you could blink. Let me just say something about that locker room for a moment, and all the locker rooms that we all get to cover. Those things are as real as it gets in terms of just from the gut feelings. These guys work so hard for 17 games a year, and every win they get, and if you're lucky you get an 18th, a 19th, a 20th, and a 21st, every win they get means something. So those scenes to me, I think are just so raw. I love them. I think fans love them, and they're real. This game, look, they did what they had to do. They heard all the questions coming into the season. They heard all the questions coming out of Green Bay. People told them it was just the Bears when they won in week number 2. They knew they had to go out and beat a good team, not just for their record, but they like answering their critics, and they did that in this game. It was all 3 phases, sacking Lamar Jackson 7 times, big 4th down conversions on offense, scoring when you had to score, and making plays on special teams. It was a thorough effort by this football team, and one that they needed and one that they rightfully should feel very good about.
Boy, I'll tell you what, that 10-plus minute drive they put together, the 4th down call late in the game, I love the way they ran the football. Troy Aikman on the broadcast said that Dan Campbell's got big onions. We just saw the numbers. Did they do anything that you didn't like in that football game?
Not much. It'd be hard to pick something apart in that game. I mean, look, you don't see 7 sacks against Lamar Jackson coming very often. And again, let's remember, this was a pass rush that has been questioned by people. And then when they lose Marcus Davenport, again to injury, it was questioned even more. But it was a full team effort. Let's give some credit to Kelvin Shepard, the defensive coordinator, who designed a scheme to keep him contained. Guys stuck to their jobs, and they found Jackson often enough. It was going to be a difficult game regardless. And believe me, even though they won by 8 and they're up by 2 scores late in that game, it was the kind of game that felt like it was hanging in the balance for most of those 60 minutes, but they got it done. Lou, I can't pick apart anything that they did in that game that I would say, hey, be better next time. That's one that you say, you know what, let's look at the tape. Let's figure out maybe a couple things that we can clean up and move on to the next game against Cleveland. But you got a little bit of time to enjoy this one for a minute.
Hey, Dan, you and I are buddies. Any way we can get David Montgomery back in a Bears uniform here?
Not a chance, man. Not a chance. He's the heartbeat. He is the heartbeat of this team. I mean, there's so many parts that play a role in what this team is, and I'm sure that's the way in all these cities. But Demo just being that veteran, the grizzled guy, still playing, peeling off big runs. People just follow him, man. They absolutely love him here. So the answer is no. He's the football equivalent to Chris Chelios. We're not giving him back.
I get it, man. The guy plays with his whole heart. I remember him when he was here in Chicago. All right, biggest upset of the season in Cleveland on Sunday, and Micah Parsons said it best postgame.
This is all part of adversity. Undefeated seasons, like, they're hard in the NFL. Like, let's be real. And sometimes, just like today, you to bed. That's just the reality of it. Like, it happens to the best teams. You know what I mean? Even the best Super Bowl champs make mistakes, and they pay for it early.
Hey, Tim, I guess the 1972 Dolphins can rest easy. Packers aren't going to go 17-0, are they?
They are not going to do that, and they're not going to talk about it again next time either. Rasheed Walker said, I'm not going to talk to the media the rest of the season. He's the one who said they were going to go undefeated this past week. Last week, guys, I talked about the birds singing in Wisconsin. This week, fans think the sun's not even going to come out again the rest of the season. My goodness, this way to that way. Packers clearly look past the Cleveland Browns, though. There's no way to look at it otherwise. The offensive line was suboptimal, let's put it that way. The game plan was severely lacking. The execution by the offense was subpar. The special teams did not do its job. The defense was good again, and still, with all the mistakes, definitely good enough for the Packers to win that game. But the Packers got a dose of the humble pie, and Dan talked about the locker room. There was raw emotion in the locker room. I asked Micah Parsons the question that led to that answer, and there was a lot of accountability from the Packers after that loss. A lot of these guys have been around. They've been on good teams that have had bad losses. The Packers still think they're a good team. They've definitely now had a bad loss, and as Brandon McManus says, what are we going to do about it?
Hey, Tim, Packers' run game was awful. You just touched on it. 1.9 yards per carry for Josh Jacobs. Jordan Love, man, the poor guy was sacked 5 times. I'm not sure that's ever happened in a game for Love. He threw a brutal fourth-quarter pick. What's more worrisome? Is it the run game, Love, or are you more concerned about an offensive line that suddenly is dealing with some injuries?
Dealing with injuries and hasn't really done much this season. Didn't play together very much in preseason. Maybe that's part of it. You always talk about continuity on that offensive line. They haven't run the ball very well 3 straight times out now. They've been able to get away with it, but they haven't run it yet this season. Josh Jacobs way down on his numbers, not because he's not in there banging away. It's just that there's nothing for him to hit. So I think the offensive line is a major concern to this point. The running game is kind of connected to that offensive line. Jordan Love's been okay, but that pass the other day is a tough one to get off your resume. That looks pretty bad, particularly where and when it occurred.
Yeah. All right. Here in Chicago, Ben Johnson, he called out his team's practice habits early last week. We talked about it here on this show. Jaquan Brisker admitted that he and Grady Jarrett led a players-only meeting Wednesday, and the Bears responded. Here's Ben Johnson in the locker room celebrating the Bears' win, which was number 1 for Johnson in his head coaching career.
Boss man's first home victory. First win. You know what I got. Repeat after me now. Good, better, best. Good, better, best. Never let it rest. Never let it rest. Good gets better. Good gets better. And you better get better. And you better get better. Bears on 3. 1, 2, 3. Bears.
All right, guys, here's what I loved about the optic of that moment. I talked about it last night on our show, Chicago Sports Tonight Daily. Montez Sweat and Dayo Odeyingbo, they are right in the middle of that celebration. And veterans, all right, these guys are veterans on a defense that was shredded in Detroit. Ben Johnson publicly ripped his team's practice habits. Could have gone one of 2 ways. Maybe veterans whisper, hey, who the heck is this guy? Who does he think he is? He hasn't even won a game in this league as a head coach. Or veterans say, he's right. We know he's right. Let's get it together. Caleb Williams had a career day against a pathetic Dallas defense. He had a career high in passer rating and yards per attempt, and he threw 4 touchdown passes. Wasn't sacked in the game either. And by the way, how about this? A local Chicago institution, a place I have frequented at 4 a.m. many a times. The Wiener Circle said before the game, if Caleb throws 4 touchdown passes, they're giving out free hot dogs today. Look at the line today. Oh, my Lord. I will be there after the show. Jumbo dog on the grill, mustard, extra relish, tomatoes, cheese fries. It's my 4 a.m. stop, boys. Offensive line, terrific. First time in Caleb's career. The guy wasn't sacked in a game. Ben Johnson felt comfortable calling the flea flicker play. It was a beautiful day on the lakefront here in Chicago. We needed it. And when I say we, the organization, the players, and the fans. All right, Pierre. Where does the Isaiah Rodgers game rank amongst the best games in Vikings history?
Well, it's no doubt got to be up there, Lou. Even when I was watching the game, I thought to myself, you know, I don't know if I've ever seen a performance like that. And then the NFL confirmed later on that you had, in fact, never seen a performance like that before. 2 forced fumbles, 2 defensive touchdowns. One of them was an interception return for a touchdown. It was a banner day, not just for Isaiah Rodgers, but really for this Vikings defense as a whole that just absolutely dominated Cincinnati from beginning to end. But Isaiah Rodgers, after the game, as you can imagine, Lou, all smiles knowing that he just did something no player in the history of the league had ever done before. Quite a performance.
Yeah, he single-handedly outscored the Bengals offense with 2 defensive touchdowns. Kevin O'Connell meeting with the media yesterday, and he answered when we can expect to see J.J. McCarthy back.
I think we saw, as phenomenal as he was getting prepared for the Atlanta game, he did miss practice that week. And when you're in the phasing of building up the 10,000 reps and 10,000 hours of what it takes to play the position at a very high level, which we know J.J. McCarthy is going to do, you can't cut corners on that. And that also doesn't require an answer on that question today.
All right, answer it, Pierre. Are we not going to see him back until week 7?
It's certainly looking that way right now, Lou. Even though he is traveling with the team, they do not expect him to play this Sunday when the Vikings are in Dublin to take on the Steelers. And like I said, even though he is traveling with the team, it's not looking like he's going to be back on the field anytime soon. They're leaving the door open for him to possibly be able to go in London when the Vikings take on the Browns in week 5. But right now, it's not looking likely that he'll be back on the field before week 7 when the Vikings host the Eagles.
All right, can they keep winning with Carson Wentz at quarterback?
Well, I think they can. And the one thing that we have to remember with Carson Wentz is, he didn't join this team until training camp was pretty much over. He was not in camp with the Minnesota Vikings. He has been here for less than a month. The numbers obviously don't wow you from Sunday's game against Cincinnati, but I don't think they're supposed to wow you in the first place. I think Kevin O'Connell did a great job making sure that Carson Wentz felt comfortable in this offense. Credit to Carson for learning this offense, a complicated one, as fast as he possibly could, and he did the job that everybody was expecting him to do. Keep the team afloat. Don't turn the ball over. He did exactly that, and I think this team certainly can move the ball up and down the field with Carson Wentz, and I think everybody is a little bit optimistic that he can keep the ship afloat until J.J. McCarthy comes back under center.
All right, we'll find out. We need to take a timeout. Speaking of injuries, Vikings will be without their first-round pick for a couple of weeks, and the Packers left Cleveland battered and bruised. We'll have the details when we come back here on First and North.
USC takes on Illinois. It's Big Noon Saturday on Fox.
All right, we're back here on First and North. Luke Canellis at our Fox 32 studios in Chicago. Dan Miller is at Fox Detroit. Tim Van Voren, Fox Milwaukee, and Pierre Nugent in Minneapolis at Fox Minneapolis. Pierre, I want to start with you. How about rookie first-round pick guard Donovan Jackson? Is he out? And if he is, for how long now?
Yeah, Lou, he is going to be out for the foreseeable future, but the Vikings remain optimistic that they won't have to put him on injured reserve. He just had surgery on his wrist. A curious situation because the Vikings say that he injured his wrist in that game against Atlanta over a week ago, played through it against Cincinnati, made it through the entire game, but now is expected to miss 2, possibly the next 3 games. Kind of a similar situation in J.J. McCarthy. I don't think we're going to see Donovan Jackson in games in Europe against Pittsburgh and Cleveland, but the Vikings are optimistic he will be able to return after the bye week when the Vikings take on the Eagles in week 7.
Wow, thankfully Christian Darrisaw is back, right?
No doubt about it, and I don't think it's any coincidence that the Vikings had their best game on the ground all season long with the return of Christian Darrisaw. Jordan Mason was sensational against Cincinnati, 116 yards on the ground, and the Vikings are all smiles having Christian Darrisaw back, even though think about this, Lou, he hasn't been on the field in almost a year. His first game back is against Trey Hendrickson, and you can't imagine that Christian Darrisaw is in complete 100% football shape, but he absolutely shut down Trey Hendrickson in that game. The Vikings are thrilled to have him back on the field.
Yeah, Darrisaw is quite a talent. Warning to the rest of the NFL, Justin Jefferson now has his partner back, right? Jordan Addison's back.
Yes, he is scheduled to come off of the suspension, missed the first 3 games of the season, and the Vikings could certainly use him. The Vikings, even though they call Jalen Nailor speedy, and he does have great speed, but the Vikings really haven't looked or have had really a vertical threat through the first 3 games of the season. Jordan Addison absolutely gives them that. Great route runner, great hands is Jordan Addison. He adds another element to this offense. So, yes, expect Jordan Addison to be back in the lineup this Sunday when the Vikings take on the Steelers.
Let me bring back Tim from Milwaukee. Hey, Tim, Zack, Tom, he comes back and plays just 1 snap against the Browns. What's his status for Sunday?
It's going to be questionable, Lou, and it was questionable as to his involvement in the game at Cleveland the other day. We talked to him during the week, and he wasn't real confident about the ability to play. He said, ask me, I'll see. He was active, goes down on the very first play of the game, re-aggravation of the same injury, an oblique injury. So not a setback according to Matt LaFleur, but can't have a player out. You're down a player after 1 play with the same injury. So that definitely worked against the Packers, they had 8 offensive linemen dressed out on Sunday, and they were down to number 8 in the first half.
Wow. Tight end Tucker Kraft, okay and ready?
Okay and ready. He did play a majority of the snaps against Cleveland. Wasn't a big part of the game plan. That was part of what happened to Green Bay last week. They had a lot of distractions during the week of who would be in, who wouldn't be out. Kraft got hurt during the week in practice, so was he going to play, not going to play, that sort of thing. Not an excuse. It really played itself out with a flat offensive performance. But Kraft was out there for the bulk of the game and should be out there in Dallas this Sunday night.
All right, here's the story on the best defensive player for the Bears here in Chicago. Jaylon Johnson, placed on injured reserve back on Saturday. Ben Johnson said that Johnson's going to have core muscle surgery, but should be back before the season ends. That's a huge, huge get for the Bears and the defense if he indeed comes back, especially with T.J. Edwards and Kyler Gordon still sitting out. Dan, Terrion Arnold, he had a rough outing on Monday night. Jameson Williams' brother had some strong opinions on him on social media. I don't know if you saw it today, but the Texans released former Lion C.J. Gardner-Johnson earlier. Do you see any chance that the Lions may bring C.J. Gardner-Johnson back?
I don't think that's on tap. CJ had some not so complimentary things to say about Detroit in his time after he left. I don't know if that would be a factor or not. I think they feel pretty good about where they are in the secondary. Look, TA's got to be better, and I think he knows that. And we saw him last year struggle early, got better towards the end. He's struggling a little bit now. But I will say in the second half of that game, when Lamar Jackson was looking for somewhere to go, that secondary as a whole had Baltimore on lockdown pretty good in the secondary, so clearly he was a part of that. But we're seeing some struggles there. And it also might tell you a little something. When they went out and signed DJ Reed as a free agent last year for some good money, $348, I was a little surprised by that, but maybe that's also their understanding that Terrion's going to take some time and he's still working through some things. It's a tough position to play. I certainly seemed like he was ascending last year. He's got to get back to that this year, and hopefully the second half of that game on Monday night will be an indication that he's headed in that direction. But he's under the microscope right now, and every team in the league is looking at the same tape, and that's the side they're going to go after until he proves he can handle it.
Hey, Dan, I don't want Penei Sewell to get mad at me. We better give that offensive line some love, man. I have to be honest with you. I'm even surprised with the way they have played the last couple of weeks.
Look, 2 games in a row, no sacks. Jared Goff has got time back there. That's the one thing that jumped out in this game. Baltimore was missing some guys. Matabike and Van Noy both weren't in there. But still, that's a very accomplished defense that can get after the quarterback. And the Lions gave Goff time to do what he was able to do. And look, Goff had never beaten the Ravens. He was 0-3 as a starter. He had never thrown a touchdown pass against the Ravens. 3 interceptions on top of that. So this was a nice night for him, nice night for the team. And that offensive line seemingly has gotten past the communication issues in which guys were going the wrong way when they played Green Bay, and they were able to do it on the road, which I think was a big step as well. Now they'll come back home against Cleveland, but you want to see continued growth, but no argument, Lou. That's a big part of this team, has been a big part of this team, and what they've done the last 2 weeks in these 2 victories has been very nice for this football team.
Man, they looked awesome last night. We need to take our final timeout. We preview Week 4 around the NFC North next.
Football at noon. It's like clockwork. Shanghai, Rome, Paris, Lubbock. There is no time zone on Saturday. Look at these lunatics. These people need help.
All right, back here on First and North. Here are the matchups for Week 4 in the NFC North. Vikings going abroad, Dublin, Ireland, to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. Back in the States, Lions host one of the NFL's better defenses. Man, the Cleveland Browns really brought it against Green Bay last week. Bears look to make it 2 in a row, and they hit the road. They're going to Sin City to take on the Raiders. Sunday Night Football. Oh, boy, this one's fun. Micah Parsons goes back to Jerry's World against the Cowboys. Pierre, let me bring you in. You got your bags packed, 2-week trip to Dublin and London?
Boy, I wish it was going to be me, but the powers that be here at Fox 9, they told me they didn't trust me out on a night at a town in Dublin. I said, look at my face. How can you not trust this face? Come on. No, but Don Mitchell will be out there for us in Dublin, and I was surprised that Jimmy Rich will be in London. I couldn't believe that Jim actually had his passport. So kudos to Jim for that. And but it's going to be an entertaining couple of weeks here for us here at Fox 9 in Minneapolis, going abroad, and going to be an entertaining game against the Steelers. You know, Pittsburgh is 2-1 as well, but they haven't looked overly impressive, I would say. And if you go back to last year, Aaron Rodgers, when he was with the Jets, boy, Brian Flores' defense gave him all he could handle in that game overseas as well. So I know Aaron Rodgers probably hasn't forgotten about that, but I think the Vikings have a little bit of an edge here against Pittsburgh on Sunday.
Hey, man, you better keep an eye on Dawn. I worked with Dawn here in Chicago. So how about the Vikings, a perfect 8-0 in international games? How? Why?
Yeah, unbelievable. Something in the water. I think fans here are hoping that they would do a little less worse. So, I mean, maybe they might threaten to move to overseas with them doing so well. But it's really a testament to how they prepare for these games and get themselves ready. And hopefully we'll see if they can keep that undefeated streak here in the next couple of weeks.
All right, Dan, we saw the Browns wreck that Packers offense last Sunday. That young offensive line that you and I were just bragging about, it's got a tough task with Myles Garrett, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the best players in the league. He is a game wrecker. He's a guy that changes a game in one snap. And usually what happens is I will bring him up to our head coach, Dan Campbell, and Dan Campbell would say, full marks, loves the guy, respects his talent, and then he'll say at the end, but I like our guys on the outside. And he's talking about Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell. And that'll be the matchup that we'll see, and they will have their hands full. And when it's him and Sewell, man, that's two of the best, which is a really cool thing to see. Look, this is Jim Schwartz coming back to Detroit. He's a terrific defensive coordinator. He's got them playing great. Probably good for Detroit that they beat Green Bay, obviously in the standings, but also because it gets your attention. You will not be sleepwalking into this one.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Schwartz. Quite a guy, quite a coach as well. Tim, I am sure Micah Parsons will be ready to send a message to Jerry Jones, but this is really a get-right game for the Packers offense against that bad Dallas defense, right?
I think you're right on two fronts there, Lou. Obviously, in terms of Micah Parsons, very emotional return to Big D, and the Cowboys have said they're not going to have any tributes to him, any special moments for him, so I'm sure that's under Micah's skin a little bit. As for the Packer offense, they do need to get right. They need to patch it up. Health-wise, they need to patch it up. Emotionally, after what happened to them in Cleveland, Josh Jacobs says he feels sorry for the Cowboys. He said the team that's coming next, but we know that's the Cowboys because Green Bay is going to be very focused after what happened in Ohio.
Oh, man. All right, Bears not favored in this game in Vegas. It's unbelievable. They are 1.5 underdogs right now, and they've lost 10 of their last 11 road games. But in my opinion, they are going to dominate this Raiders team. The Raiders' offensive line has given up the second most sacks in the NFL. And I saw a stat yesterday that blew me away. Ashton Genty, best running back coming out of the draft, at least the highest drafted running back coming out of the past draft. This guy, over half of the times he carries the football, he gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage. He's getting no help up front. And Geno Smith, man, he's been sacked a number of times as well. I think it's 12 over the first 3 games. So the Bears defensive line, we are calling on you. Great show as always, guys. For Dan, Tim, Pierre, I'm Lou Canellis. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week right here on First and North.